everyone, it's me again, Ashkra from London Pictures, and welcome back to Snowbound Blood. Damn, I can't talk today. I got just back from holiday, more or less, with my family, celebrating Easter, so I don't have much time for this episode. But we start right there where we last finished off. We just arrived at the crime scene and found 2 dead bodies, a few uninterested co-workers, and now we have to investigate this scene. So which should we check first? The surroundings, the cockpit, the tires, the cargo, or the bodies? Well, I will go with the bodies. Oh, also we have that meter up there that we have to fill up in order to successfully analyze the entire situation. You make your way over to the 2 corpses lying prone. Looks like you've got a rust blood and a gold blood here. The pair of them are laid out straight, arms by their sides, legs flat against the ground. They were probably on their knees first before they fell towards. No sign of a struggle from where you're standing. A combination of rigor mortis and the temperature as well as the metaphoric. Although now that you think about it, you guess the literal sense is where the expression originally comes from. Wait, did I? Temperatures. Oh, means they're now stiffs in the literal sense as well as the metaphoric. Yeah, I didn't read that one, sorry. Whatever, you're not a wordologist. Zipping on a pair of work gloves and making sure not to disturb the scene too much, you carefully roll the 2 of them over to get a closer look. The thing you notice immediately is the wounds. 2 clean cuts, one across either neck. From that you surmise that they were probably bled to death. The next thing you notice almost as immediately is the expressions on their faces. The eyes and mouths are wide open. They look like they were utterly terrified. The one on the left, the gold blood, was an adult in his mid to late teens by the looks of it. You'd estimate maybe 15 sweeps at a pass. You don't recognize him. There's something about the younger Rustblood on the right that strikes you as familiar. Rustblood on the right. You look at, we already looked at the gold blood pretty much, so let's look at the Rustblood. You decide to examine the troll you recognize a little more closely. You get a good look at their face, and then close your eyes and search your memory. Recall the refectory. As you concentrate, a recollection seems to coalesce out of the void, forming gradually like a bead of water before dropping and splashing across your consciousness all at once. You remember seeing them just once before. It was in one of the various eating halls inside the walls of Stronghold 21, about half a sweep ago. There were around 12 sweeps old at the time, judging by the fact that there was a certain bright optimism in their face which hadn't yet been stamped out. The horror of this would bides its time for some people, how fortunate for them. The encounter wasn't even a proper meeting. They were just some stranger your eyes lingered on a moment longer than usual. You noticed them leaning against a pillar-handled mobile device in hand, with a distinctly sour expression on their face. The way they were drilling holes into the screen with their eyes gave the impression that they were waiting for someone to get in touch. A frustrating business party, maybe. All Mother knows you spend enough corporate hours waiting for the right people to buzzer you, just as much time hoping that they won't all the same. You turn to hand a loop or three to the elderly Burgundy behind the counter, her horns gnarled and helical. You could remember the exact amount you cared to, but you're not focused on it right now. After picking up the freshly boiled soda, carbonated but not gluconated, and the lateral wheat fiber stack, you turned back in the direction. While your back was turned, the face seemed to have morphed into a gleeful yet still gentle and reserved expression of pure delight. They were now standing upright, excitedly tapping away at the device in their hands. Their eyes had softened at the corners, and a faint blush danced across their cheeks. Ah, you thought. Of course. You open your eyes, almost regretting the exercise. Your inability to forget can be a cruel thing sometimes. Most of the time, in fact. You search the young Rustblood's body, but don't find anything of note. Just some personal effects. A packet of chill drops, a worn photograph, their phone. Without thinking, you go to wake it, and you feel a sharp rush of relief as it doesn't light up. The battery must have died overnight. You put it back in their pocket. The last thing you check is the ID tag tied to their ankle with a sense of dread. These things are always rather morbid to look at, but they are an important means of sorting out the mess after a troll kicks it. Or as in this case, has it kicked for them. Corporate employment asset number. Piston Nosen designation logistical security. Will statement undocumented. Bondmates M. That last letter curls painfully in your chest. Shit. They have a bonded matesprit out there. Somewhere, someone who just felt a twinge of pain, but doesn't know why yet. Someone whose life won't ever be the same again. Just one more poor soul who will be filing their temp papers tomorrow, not really knowing how they'll manage it, if they'll manage it. It sure takes you back. You stay there for a while, kneeling beside Nosen's body in the snow. Then you sigh and pull yourself back upright. You take a look at the gallblood on the left again. You get a closer look at the gallblood stranger besides the neck wound. He doesn't appear to have sustained any other injuries. That strikes you as very odd. You suspect that they were threatened at a distance, since otherwise they wouldn't have knelt without kicking up a fuss. Certainly you'd expect to see some incidental bruising if there was a scuffle. It would make sense if they were occupied in front though. Perhaps someone came up from behind in the meantime and, yeah, you pin that explanation to the top of your mental list as a most plausible, for now. You gently search the guy's pockets. There's a couple of loops and spare change. A respite keycard, the beginnings of a pretty substantial hint collection, a handful of soda bottle caps, nothing of any importance. Although, who are you to judge? Maybe the lint was his ancestors. From the fact that this stuff was kept in his pocket, you deduce that he wasn't in the habit of using a fetch modus. Some goes for his companion too. Perhaps they couldn't afford them. Not everyone can. You're about to call it quits here when you glance down at one of his hands. It appears to be holding something. This one? While you prise his fingers open, you take a look at the ID tag around his wrist. Corporate employment asset number Advent. Neutral. Designation logistical security. Will statement undocumented. Bond mates none. Poor guy. At least he's not leaving anyone behind to suffer sweeps of withdrawal. You don't let that thought carry on. You don't. Finally, you manage to force the hand open. Nestled in the palm is a small ball-shaped device. The surface has several small holes in it, and there's a flap on the back that looks like a wing case. What's up, Pumpkin? Want to be in the camera too? Hi, Pumpkin! Mwah. You recognize it as a maintenance probe. These things are always carried on logistic transports. They are used to check for and fix mechanical problems, since it's unfeasible to have a resident mechanic for every convoy. This one looks like it's being crushed. Did this guy Neutral do that? You tried to rip and diagnostic from it, but it's probably been out in the cold too long to show any signs of life now. Perhaps this explains why the convoy has stopped in the first place, though if the vehicle was tampered with somehow, then the first thing the crew would do is try and identify the systems failure. What a nasty trap to walk into. Woo! 25%! You take a look at... I go back. And now I look at the surroundings. You decide to scout the surrounding area, just to be sure. It's highly likely that the response team missed something when they arrived during the night. Starting with the ground between the transport and the bodies, you begin a sweep for footprints. You establish pretty quickly that the only tracks in the vicinity belong to you, and by comparison with the guard's prints from earlier, your three companions. Otherwise, the snow which fell overnight has completely coated the ground in a pristine layer of white, sitting unbroken like fondant on a Yule-passing confection. You don't remember the last time you had one of those. Well, that's not true. You remember it with perfect clarity, just like everything else, but you'd rather not think about it, so you don't. What's important is that it was a long time ago. And what's more important than that is that there's no trace of culprits to be seen. There's a little hillock a small ways out from where the transport is stopped. In lieu of any better ideas, you decide to see if a little elevation reveals anything. You trudge your way up a slight incline, boots crunching and squeaking against the ice and snow. From the higher vantage point you can see the whole scene in one picture. The transport, the bodies, the security team, your bike. And beyond the field of white patched with streaks of grey and brown and sickly green extends as far as you can see in all directions. There's no sign of anything from up here either. Shit. On the way back you down a harsh wind whips up for a moment, and you grip your long coat around your neck against the chill that it brings. Well, at least the cold isn't toxic. The northern wastes are forever being befetted by the very worst that Reputant's recalcitrant climate has to offer. Almost nobody lives there. The region seems to exist as somewhere to be traveled across, rather than a real place in and of itself. And while such places can sometimes be enjoyable, to pass through, the very opposite is true here. The wastes strike you as more of a cruel joke than anything else. A deadly expanse separating two of the planet's most populous regions, its traversal is a perpetual nightmare, logistical and otherwise. You arrive back at the crime scene with no better idea of the situation than when you left. An absence of information can itself be an important detail, but there are no inside increments to be had this time. You need to try something else. Okay, so maybe the murderers or the ones who stole the wings were on top. There are no trails and nothing. Let's check the cockpit. You decide to check the inside of the driving compartment. The driver and the two guards were all stationed in the same chamber. At the very front of the vehicle, a set of concertina steps leads up to the entryway. These got deployed automatically when the doors were opened and stayed that way since the crew had never returned. A fair bit of snow blew inside overnight, so the floor and seats are flecked with white and slush. Or just got all blown over by snow and we don't see anything anymore. Besides the mess jointly formed by the inclement weather and the usual layer of trucker detritus, though there doesn't appear to be any sign of disarray in the compartment. If there was a struggle at any point, it didn't happen here. That means the driver and two guards probably got out of their own accord. You think? You have a pretty good hunch why. There's an angry red light humming in and out on the main info screen. An emergency overlay has activated apparently in response to the driver's extended absence. Since transport convoys play such a huge role in Ripperton's socio-economic system, the risk of them getting into trouble is taken very seriously as a matter of survival. A huge risk. Okay. A truck driver's chip, while allowing them to activate the vehicle in the first place, also acts kind of like the pin in the grenade. But like if the grenade were designed for safety purposes. This is an unspeakable shitty analogy, but you're going with it anyway. Point being, if the driver is out of the compartment for more than a short period between stops, the onboard computer automatically registers an emergency and backup is called for. In a totally non-explosive manner. It occurs to you that a system which allowed the driver to get out and stretch their legs every once in a while might have resulted in a better job satisfaction. Or rather, it would occur to you if the notion of job satisfaction existed on your planet. You lean over to the dashboard and tap a menu, not the menu, brain, come on, icon on the screen. And the warning light fades out one final time. Taking one last glance around, you see an open book with its pages turned down on the far passenger seat. Looks like it must have belonged to one of the two guys out front. Cocking your head to one side, you can read the title. It's called Board My Bong Water and Look at Me Now, the Turn KK story. What? Oh wow. Someone was a big fan of a certain internet daredevil. Apparently. Doesn't look like the uncanny ability to survive pretty much anything rubbed on the beloved breed though. The book seems really well loved. Picking it up, you can see that the spine is broken in several places from overuse, and lots of the pages have been folded over the corners. Some of them even appear to be missing. Flipping to the front, you take a peek at the nameplate stuck on the inside cover. This book is just dying to be devoured by N. Evans. There's a little heart next to the penciled in name. You put the book back. You feel like wiping your hands on something. You decide to investigate the tires. You walk around the bodies in a wide circle and approach the vehicle to get a closer look at the tires. Call it a hunch. The fresh snow is gradually piling up around the transport. The gentle curve between the white and the wheel arches makes it look like the ground is coyly grabbing at the tires, not wanting to let them go. There's something almost tender about which belies the very real danger. Getting stranded out here in the wastes is not a situation anyone wants to be in. Another hour or so and someone's going to have to get digging. Our feet plunge a ways down through the frozen mass as you get close and begin to scrabble away with your hands, carving the wheels out in order to get a better view. The first few you look at don't reveal much. The wheels are in a dual configuration, laid out in pairs along the length of the transport, so you take them 2 by 2. Your voice of an old acquaintance pops up in your subconscious while you do this, mumbling inane facts about the vehicle's model, the wheel configurations, the tire manufacturing. All Mother knows why she tells you this stuff. You do have a knack for recalling useful information when it's needed, though. And just like that, you notice that all these tires have been retreated at least once. For some of them, the process was done very recently, in fact. Retreating wheels this size usually means that it's more expensive to replace them altogether. Going by the age of the vehicle, though, you'd say it's more like a desperate attempt to keep it going as long as possible. This one's probably on its last legs. Last wheels. You reach the last pair of tires and repeat your routine of digging them out with your hands and then skimming around the inside of the guards and the wheel arches with your fingers. This time, though, you find something. Your fingers meet a small oblong object, probably no larger than a pack of cards, stuck out of sight on the underside of one of the arches. This is most definitely not supposed to be here. Planting your feet either side of the wheel and bracing, you reach your other hand under the metal rim and pull down hard. It doesn't budge for a moment, but then pop. With that, the object comes loose very suddenly and you stumble backwards a little ways. Your grip on it doesn't hold, and it falls out of your grasp and down into the snow, bouncing off the rubber. Righting yourself and dusting a little of the snow off your coat, you bend forward to take a look at this thing where it fell. It appears to be the remains of a small box. The casing is burned and charred, half melted and barely holding it together. Some wiring is poking out at odd angles, and you can make out something aching to an aerials at the one end. It's almost destroyed beyond recognition, but you don't need to be an expert to know what this thing is, what it represents. Sabotage. You decide to investigate the cargo, but first I want to say, the tires, I don't know, that doesn't seem me alien enough for, like, it doesn't strike me as alien enough like the scuttle bodies on the Alterna and everything do. The cargo. You move around to the very rear of the transport, looking for the entry port into the cargo hold. One of the two faceless olive blood guards sees what you're doing and comes over to point out the access terminal for you. She offers you a keycard saying she's not authorized to open the door herself. You take it and thank her. You keep quiet about the personal access card in your jacket pocket, the one which, as a regulator, you have the right to carry. You don't need her help, but it's good to let the kids think they're part of something important. You find it hard to think of these people as anything but wigglers sometimes. Besides, it's part of your job as a higher up to not let people feel ready, at least right up until the moment they are. Then it's a different story. You wave the borrowed card over the receiver and a loud, harsh buzzing noise signifies that the lock is disengaging. Together with an almighty clunk as the bolts retract. Why did I read chunk first? You hand the card back to the guard and climb up into the transport. The inside of the hold is lit up in a pale green light which blinks into life when you open the cargo door. One of the bulbs at the far end struggles to come on, sputtering like a sick spark bug. The cargo itself is packed in boxes of varying shapes and sizes, all of which are arranged in a very intricate pattern on a series of shelves. They range from small cubes all the way to crates tall vending. The arrangement of the cargo is determined via an algorithm which picks the optimal way to store the electric mix of items to be delivered on any given trip. It's a clever system, but sometimes it leads to something very small being packed inside a box which is 4 times larger than it needs to be. That's one of the disadvantages. The other main drawback is that unless you know the arrangement beforehand, it's very hard to know where any particular item will be. Unfortunately, the thieves took care of that for you. That's also the unfortunate part, of course. There's a single empty slot on a shelf about halfway down the length of the transport, roughly the size of a briefcase. The filter must have been taken from here. There are probably hundreds of pounds worth of valuable resources in this transport together, with provisions, trade goods, electronics, but the thieves didn't go for any of it, just for the filter. The fact that the rest of the crates weren't disturbed at all also tells you immediately that you knew exactly where to look. The schedule's change wasn't the only thing your little snitch spilled the beans on them. The more you find out about this case, the less you like it. And yet, there's something that's beginning to thrill you even now. There's nothing quite like an opponent who knows what they're doing. You duck back out of the hole and the door shuts and locks automatically behind you. You decide that you're done here. Because I have 100% full and there's no other options. But now the light is starting to dim. You've checked everything that you wanted to, and it's about time you began to head back to the stronghold. This report isn't going to submit itself, you think bitterly. You tried that one before. You thank the guards for their help and let them know that they can start clearing up here. The olive blood from earlier is looking pretty flushed, presumably from the cold. Hopefully she gets someplace warm. You make your departure with a curt nod, and then walk back over to your bike. Some of the snow has begun to pile up in the seat. You brush it off and swing on one leg over before starting to the engine up. Before gunning it out of here, you get one last look at the scene. Take in the bodies, the vehicle, the endless white. You try to picture in your mind what last frantic moment in the dead of the night when 3 people's lives were cut short. In a few hours this place will be empty again. Nothing but some blood beneath the snow to mark what happened here. But you'll remember. Okay, since I'm very short on time today, I'm gonna cut it here. I'm gonna save, and I'm sorry that I'm so short on time today, but this video is going up in a few hours, and I have barely any time to edit and upload and everything, so I'll have to cut it short. I'm sorry for that, but we investigate the crime scene. And now we have a slight suspicion of what is going on. That someone stole something very important only for that reason, and whoever has done that knows what they're doing. Anyway, I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video and love all of you guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Check out the links in the description below and leave a comment if you want me to know something or check out something or whatever. But anyway, for now, I am all up on time and I sincerely love all of you guys, and we'll see each other in the next video and or stream. Cheerio!